Hola, amigos. Welcome back to the Breakout Barn. On tonight's episode, I mentioned at the wrap-up of the FAQ that we would be doing something a little bit differently, and we are. First, I want to apologize for missing a question off of that FAQ. And I'm going to take time to answer it right now. So, real quick answer. Basically got hit with an FMK, which if you're not familiar, it's an acronym that stands for fornicate, marry, or kill. And I was given 3 car choices equivalent. So I guess it's daily, drive once, and set on fire. And those 3 options were Dodge Neon SRT4, a second-gen Taurus Show, and a Chrysler Prowler. So I've actually driven all 3 of those cars, and without a doubt, I'm lighting the SRT4 on fire. Those cars were really fun if you wanted to go fast for like 110 miles and didn't care about having power front windows and rear crank windows and just generally giant loafs of shit. Anything over 300 horsepower, just put holes right through the blocks. He used to work at a place where we could hear him on the dyno, and you literally, I don't know, 7,000 RPM, you would just hear him pop, and then people would come on down and look for more parts. Daily drive, definitely going to the second gen Taurus Show. Really unique car. Shame that it's a front wheel drive layout. But if you're not familiar, Yamaha made a pretty slick 3 liter or 3.2 liter V6 for them. Coupled to a 5-speed transmission. Sounded really cool. Really niche car to drive. Ford was way ahead of its time with that. And yeah, just going for something goofy. I'm definitely putting the Prowler at the drive once, the fornicate option, if you will, and it's a cool car if you're down with okay powered automatic V6s and you want to be stared at by every boomer in the history of the planet. Honestly, pretty cool platform. Meh execution. And just not really worth more than a one-night stand. Anyways, getting back to topic at hand. What we were doing tonight, something that I have done a bunch in the past, is repurpose old auto parts. So when you do a brake job, take the old crappy rotors off, and most of the time they end up in a scrap pile. Scrap pile goes, and you get like, $3 for 600 pounds of steel at this point in time. I've always liked making stuff, right? I think that's kind of why we're here. And one of the things that I've done with a lot of that stuff is repurpose it into furniture, lamps, tables, whatever it may be. So a little bit of quick backstory on this. I actually met my wife for the first time that I remember. She remembers one time before this, but I don't think it actually happened. I met my wife lugging this very same Chrysler SRT8 6.4 liter Hemi engine block from the back seat of my 99 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport Wagon up to the front step of the shitty rental house that I had at the time. My intentions back then were to turn it into a coffee table because I was 20 and that's what I wanted to do with it. I never found an appropriate place to make it a coffee table. And now that I have a bunch of extra space, I'm going to turn this thing into a coffee table. Going into why I had this block. So I mentioned that I worked for Chrysler dealership. This was an insurance job. Turns out Chrysler SRT8s, 300s specifically, not good submarines. And when you drive them through a bunch of water, you end up putting custom viewports in your block. The pistons themselves that I'm going to use to kind of support the actual table portion of this are actually out of a small block Chevy, just one of the number of motors that I rebuilt. Not 100% true, but again, these were good pistons in decent shape and the rods were all straight, so I kept them and planning to do something with them. Keeping along with the repurpose reuse theme, you guys remember when that tree came down through the back of my barn? Well, I was able to salvage a bunch of really nice charactered pretend that didn't happen. And they're maybe 1 inch thick by probably 1 by 10, couple 1 by 8s. But they've got some really great character to them. This particular coffee table is going to end up living outside in an area that we just refinished. So I'm just going to kind of wing it, right? I know the general design that I want to accomplish here. I'm going to keep the original aesthetic of the block. I'm not going to repaint it or anything like that. Clean up all the surface rust, weld the pistons on in a manner that that'll support the table. I've got 1/4-20 stainless hardware for supporting the tabletop to the bottom of the block itself. The idea here is that we create something that is repurposed, conversation piece, something that doesn't really care about being outside in the weather because it's pre-weathered wood that I will epoxy seal or resin seal. And this is just a giant hunk of machined steel. So as long as we prevent it from rusting, really not much that's going to happen to it. Don't have to worry about the wind blowing it over, anything like that. So I'm going to set up the camera, get the time lapse going, start cleaning this guy up, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we're back, and this thing is like 99% complete. I'm gonna spare you guys all the heartache of literally watching paint dry as I spray this thing and epoxy coat the top. I am not going to do either of those things tonight because while I was in here, it started pouring rain, which we have drastically needed. It has been disgustingly humid here for the last 5 days. So I'm gonna welcome that, but really not ideal times for anything oil and acrylic based, which is what I'm essentially going to use. I'm going to use some clear enamel to seal all the surfaces that I cleaned on it, and then probably just some polyacrylic 2-in-1 for the wood itself. Really happy with the character of the wood. I think I captured a lot of what I was going for, even though I set off to make something completely different. So as I started going through the design of this thing and getting it to where I want it to be, I've had 10 years to think about this with this particular block, right? And I initially wanted to make something that was wider, and I'm happy that I didn't, because I think if I had made it any wider, you wouldn't be able to see the block really from a seating position. I think that if I had made it any wider, you wouldn't be able to see the block from a sitting position, which hides a lot of the character of the table itself. As you saw, as I was going through, I have acquired a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of stuff around here, and I actually have a dumpster, and I started throwing out a ton of crap, which kind of inspired me to do this right now. Unsure if So I guess I'll walk you through what I did. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? But took the block, cleaned up all the mating surfaces for where the cylinder heads would have mounted, where the trans would have bolted to, where the front cover, timing chain, all of that would have gone to. If you've noticed, I left a lot of the patina on the inside of the cylinder blocks themselves. I'm gonna wire wheel over those real quick, but I want to leave the oxidization and the little bit of surface rust that's accumulated on those, because I think it gives a good contrast against the just straight bore, right? I've got knock sensor still in it. I've got oil pressure temp sensor still in it. I've got coolant temp sensor still in it. There's a lot in here that was how it was in the car, and I think it kind of matches the aesthetic of what I've gone for. So real quick, I simply ground off the ears on the sides of the piston so that I could get the angles that I needed to actually create a flat mounting surface across the top. The heads of pistons, so I ground the ears off of the side of the piston so that I could create the angles that I needed to create a flat mounting surface for the top. I wanted to elevate the tabletop enough to be able to reveal a lot of the character that lives inside this thing. As you can see, I've still got some cleaning to do in the valley here. Some wood chips and some leaves and whatever. Same reasons for not going crazy on the end here. I like the coloring in here. It's it feels natural. It kind of goes with the whole decay-ish of the motor itself. Nothing crazy here. MIG welded the iron rods to the iron block. At least I believe they're cast iron rods. They've got casting marks on them, so if they're not cast iron, then they're cast steel. But the reason I didn't weld the piston heads to the rods is that they are not a ferrous metal. I believe that these particular ones are actually magnesium, if I remember correctly, the motor that they came out of, which is pretty common for piston heads to actually be, or pistons themselves. So no welding to steel, but that's fine. If you notice, the whole tabletop right now is liftoff, and I haven't decided if I want to keep it that way or if I want to actually secure it to it. The tabletop itself is not drastically heavy. It's I'd call it maybe 30 pounds. But I do think that it would make, I do think that it would make moving this thing a lot easier to leave it unsecured like this. Currently, the cam is actually press fit in with some little notches that I recessed in there. I am most likely going to be bonding that with glue. Because again, it's a tabletop, it's a piece of furniture. So currently undecided if I want to add a piece of polyacrylic to cover the top of this or not. If I do, it'll probably be something thicker, like a 1/4 inch Lexan. I think that if I add something to cover the top here, and I'm not super creative about how I do it, it's going to distract from the overall aesthetic of the table. The cam is recessed enough into the tabletop that a bowl of chips or a party tray or something like that is gonna live over the top of it pretty happily. As you can see, I selected this particular board because it has so much character in it. And I think that when I rough sand it and seal it, a lot of that is going to pop. This barn, again, I think is at least 60 years old from what I can tell. And a lot of that character shows in the side of these boards, right? And I think it ended up being pretty cool. So these are some formed steel plates. I happen to have 4 of them. I'm not entirely sure what they came from. Honestly, don't really remember where I acquired them from. I've been lugging them around for probably 6 years. So, because I remember them, yep, 6 years, at least 6 years. And now I'm finally putting 2 of them to use. So, I'm going to see how they fare in the elements. From the best that I can tell, they have a galvanized coating on them. So I believe that they'll hold up pretty well. I think that I'm ultimately going to polish them to get them to kind of pop, match the machined finish that's on the block surface itself. So if you notice, I still have it on the dolly. As it sits, the block itself is the better part of 260 pounds. I believe it's actually 268 pounds dry, or bare, I should say. The top itself is probably 30 pounds, add another 25 pounds of pistons on that. So we're talking about like a 300-pound table here, right? This is no light thing. And for that reason alone, I did not put legs on it. The area where I want this to go is currently has 1-inch salt and pepper stone on it, which is it doesn't compact super well. And it wouldn't handle a cast iron leg like a concrete floor would or something like that without a pretty substantial pad. So my idea right now is to keep it as is. I'm gonna use some 4x4 pressure treated studs, lumber, essentially, to create a base for it. 2 purposes there. One, I can distribute the load super evenly across the stone, and I don't have to worry about it sinking over time into the stone because it's making contact all the way around. 2, I don't have to worry about it rusting or anything like that. Black iron pipe, I've had a hell of a time in the past with doing projects that end up outside. If you've ever touched a black iron pipe, it has essentially like a mill coating on it or an oil film, and that oil film is to prevent it from rusting. No matter how much I clean it, paint it, seal it, anything like that, black iron pipe always rusts through. So if anyone has any suggestions on that, short of like a 2-part epoxy coating or a true powder coat on it, I haven't been able to solve that dilemma. So ultimately, this thing will probably end up with adjustable legs of one form or another. But for where it's going right now, 4x4 pressure treated base is going to be the ticket home. So I think that's about it. I had said that I wanted to bring you guys in on something different other than cars. Get a little taste of other stuff that I do. I've done everything from office chairs to lamps to, you kind of name it. Actually, my primary office chair that I work out of every day is an old Sparco Club Racer seat that I built a custom frame for. It actually uses a coil spring in the back, so it's hinged and it can recline and all sorts of stuff like that. As I accumulate parts and ideas, stuff like this, spare motor casings, I've got a buddy who's looking to get rid of a trashed WRX motor. I think it's the WRX motor, but either way, it's a flat 4, complete rotating assembly, everything like that. Sounds like you can make some sweet coffee tables. I'm going to pick that stuff up and continue on, doing that stuff. I think that's about it. Only other thing, the Discord is officially fixed. There are 2 people in there as of now. It's been officially fixed for 8 hours. Discord did say, take a hike, pound sand, whatever on the old one. Apparently, somebody that joined had a bunch of malicious things attached to them. That certain somebody didn't comment on anything, but they were part of the server. So when they got found out, every server they were part of got yanked. And Discord said start over. So we're starting fresh. I'm tired. Time for bed. Comrade Kartoshka, out.